What's up, Purist? This is Bob from Purist Motorsports. Today, we're going to try to get this into that by ourselves, or by myself. Yeah, let's talk about some specifics on the K members as well, some tech info. Let's get started. Okay, so factory K members. The only reason I'm using this is because I'm being budget-minded. That's something that is, well, reigns true to many people. So this being basically free, short of the efforts we've had to put into getting rid of the control arm, it's free. It's just time, and I think that's something that everybody can give when money is tight, is that you typically have or make the time to put in to make something work. So this is a 5-liter K member out of a 93 Mustang. Obviously, I think it's common knowledge that V8 K members are wider than the 4-cylinder K members. The 86 and older K members are all the same except for the SVO. The SVO is different. It's different in that the control arm angle to the center line of the car is different, as well as the distance between the mounting points. So I think part of that had to do with the engineering behind the parts they used for that car. It had Lincoln control arms and a Lincoln rear end. The wider rear end required a wider front end due to engineering standards, safety standards, all those number of things. But the K member is different than the SVO. This angle on this K member is 16.5 degrees off of the center line of the car. The SVO is 14.5 degrees. It's 2 degrees different. And there could be a number of different things. I would only make assumptions by making statements. All right, let's go over some of these dimensions. We'll take a look at Maximum Motorsports K member as well. Because the K member they offer, actually it's in the 93 Cobra behind me here that we're working on for a client. They've done most of the mods that you can do to a Fox stock K member, but the dimensions, let's look at dimensions. So I want to use paper in this because it's kind of important. I don't want to get this right because it's something I'm sure that people will reference. And these are taken from the Mustang Performance Handbook version 2. The front A-arm distance, 79 to 87 Mustang K member, and all 4 cylinders, center to center, are 22 3/4 inch. The 88 to 93 K member A-arm bolt, this is the front again, center to center is 23 3/4. So it's 1 inch wider from 88 to 93. The SVO K member front arm A-arm bolt center to center is 23 inches. So it's worth noting the K member on the SVO, it being 1/4 inch wider than anything produced at that time, along with the lower control arms, which were 14 inches long on the SVO, it made it wider overall than any Mustang at the time. Okay, so the rear bolts on the K member are, let's see here, 79 to 87 K member rear. This is rear bolts, remember, back of the car. The A-arm bolt center to center is 30 1/8 inch from center to center. The 88 to 93 rear A-arm bolt center to center is 31 1/8, so 1 inch wider, just like the other ones. Now the SVO K member, it's a little different in that it's not consistent because the degree of the A-arm mounting bolts off of center line of the car is 14.5 degrees versus the stock 79 to 93 all the way through is 16.5 degrees. So the SVO K member in the rear A-arm bolts center to center is 29.5. When you look at like the aftermarket, and this is a good example. This K-member from Maximum Motorsports, it has 2 mounting holes, upper and lower, for your A-arm. And that allows you, if you got a really low car and you need the angle of the A-arm to land at a certain degree, this allows adjustment, which can be done to the factory K-member. You can drill holes, weld into play, all that stuff on the factory K-member. It's in that Mustang Performance Handbook, as well as modifying the stock K-member. Let's see if we can get a good picture of it here, to where you have 2 different mounting holes. Let's see, on the K-member for this Maximum Motorsports, it's got 2 different ones to move the engine back 1 inch. And that is something that is done in the Mustang Performance Handbook to a stock K-member, but it requires cutting and moving the mounting hole position back. That does help with weight distribution in the car, which is what you want in road racing. You want the engine as far back as you can. That's why a lot of cars, well, Corvette, for instance, went to mid-engine. It's just, you want that 50-50 balance as best as you can get it so that the car handles great. So it's amazing what moving the wheels forward 1 inch, 1.5 inches, and the engine back 1 inch in a Mustang will do to its weight distribution front to rear. So that's really in a nutshell what it is. Some other worthy notes from the Mustang Performance Handbook. The A-arms from 79 to 93 are 13 inches long. The SVO A-arms are 14 inches long, and the SN95 A-arms are also 14 inches long. In a nutshell, that's it. I thought it was important to say that. That's why I wanted to focus on that in this little bit of this video. This was free. Some challenges I've run into. The control arms that we have, we were going to use some bare brakes, but I'm not going to be able to do that. I mean, we put brand new ball joints in those. We were going to run these, actually had ordered Delrin bushings to put in, but because the car, if you look at it, that sway bar, what's going on with the sway bar? Anything different? Yeah, notice right there. There's usually a bracket welded right there. And it's been removed on both sides. That's because this car actually had SN95 front control arms, and that is an SN95 sway bar. With the fender flares, it makes sense. So we're gonna have to change direction. Spend money, that's what that's called. Anytime you change direction, it's usually what happens. You spend more money. We don't have to buy the Maximum Motorsports control arms to put in this that are SN95 because the mounting distance from this mount to the other side is actually wider than the Fox Mustang. So yeah, that won't work. And I'm not about to go back to and undo this because this is a better choice for road racing. The wider front is key. And to that, we're running a Lincoln SVO Saleen style rear end, which is basically the widest Fox rear end you could buy. And that makes the track width in the back really wide. So it would only make sense for us to do that. Luckily, we have some SN95 spindles that we had laying in a box. So the only thing we're gonna have to buy are rotors and control arms. So we'll hopefully be able to use our Alcon calipers on this. We're gonna have a custom bracket made. But these are in great shape. And you may be asking, well, Bob, why were you gonna use bare brakes when SN95 spindles are so common? Well, that's simple. It is a 2-piece bearing hub. The hub actually has an inner and an outer bearing, and they're rebuildable, which is what I'm doing with these. That'll be coming in a video later. But this is the outer bearing, which is just like a factory 5-liter V8 car from 87 to 93. So this is the outer bearing, and of course the inner is down in there. But that makes these easy to rebuild instead of buying the whole thing and having to replace the whole hub. Because I know of people that have tried to press the bearings out of the hubs on SN95s, but it's just more challenging. It's easier to buy one and replace it on it. But it is a ball bearing type, not a tapered roller bearing, and a tapered roller bearing is definitely better long term, especially in heat and pressure, than a ball bearing. So the first thing we did to the K-member is that I took it and cleaned it and pressure washed it. We also took some Evapo rust and put it on it and just tried to get rid of as much rust as possible. Spray painted it. I'm not interested in making it look beautiful. I just need it functional. And then I chose to leave it a silver color. One, because that's the extra paint I had laying inside of my cabinet. Two, if there are any leaks or things that happen, it will show up quick on something of that color. So washing it, getting it clean was a priority over putting it in the car first. So now we'll get that in the car. Now that I'm covered in sweat and the K-member's in, it only took a couple of minutes, took less time than I thought, which isn't that the way it goes. Sometimes you think it's gonna take no time at all and it takes forever. What is it, that meme that goes around, every 20-minute job is one broken bolt away from being a 3-day job. I've been there with a water pump. So anyways, got it in the car. Now, the factory K-member has some adjustment. The holes are slotted on one side. And what we'll end up doing is we're gonna take, I'm not gonna do this on video because you can find it online. There's so many reference papers. Matter of fact, Maximum Motorsports has white papers on this that you can find. But measuring to make sure the K-member is aligned with the rear suspension, and you measure from one corner, hang a plumb bob down, and hang a plumb bob down on the opposite corner and measure both sides from one suspension point to another. And you get the measurements the same, then you bolt it down into place, which is what we'll do. But for now, what I want to talk about is the Mathis Performance Handbook that I mentioned earlier. The K-member here, before there was, well, before Griggs and Maximum Motorsport became household names, modifying this K-member was a big deal. Moving the engine mounts back, cutting them and moving them to put the engine further back in the chassis is one of them that's probably most widely known out of that book. There's a lot of other widely known out of that book, and there's a lot of other mods that book has for the factory K-member. Great conversation again had in the comments talking about, let's not forget all of the mods you can do to a factory K-member. And that's true. When you can't afford to pay $700, $800, $900 or whatever it is for a whole K-member, brand new from whomever, Griggs or Maximum Motorsports, you can take this one and modify it if you're really good with welding, accurate with measurements, and follow to all of that. So this has a lot of potential in it. That's pretty much it. We are going to wait and tighten them down into place once we measure and put the plumb bobs down. Again, I'm not going to show that. You can search Google. Anyways, whether you're driving them or restoring them, always enjoy them. Peace.